let's uncomplicate, Ralph. Let's talk about actual football. Cool. Let's go to a question from our friend Nathan.
Dear Andy, one of the great things about your show is that you're always so darn positive. So let's change that for a second. What teams heading into 2024 do you think are way overrated and destined to grossly underperform their expectations?
Before we answer Nathan's question, Ralph, is Nathan on a skateboard or a hoverboard in that video? He's moving pretty fast. I'm actually a little worried that he's videoing himself while doing that.
I think it's got to be a hoverboard because he's moving a little too smoothly.
Yeah.
Like with a skateboard, you might be hearing a little feedback, a little
Clicking
rattling there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine he's doing that on a skateboard that smoothly. And again, as you said, probably not the safest thing. So Nathan, come on, safety first here.
But we love you, Nathan. Nathan lives in Israel and follows college football from Israel, asks incredible questions. Like he asks the best questions every week. And so this is a good one. And it does get us into some actual football. So this is one that everybody hates in the offseason, because in the offseason, we're supposed to pump sunshine and tell you how great your team's going to be. Right. But there are teams that could have disappointing. This would be like TCU last year, where we had high expectations for them coming in, and they clearly were not capable of meeting them. So, Ralph, who you got?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is right. Every time the AP poll, the preseason AP poll comes out, I always tell people that, 2 of these top 10 teams are probably going to be unranked. Just prepare yourself, because 2 of these top 10 teams are going to be, because that's what the numbers say over the years. Where I kind of look for disappointments, quote unquote disappointments, is I tend to try to find the teams that were last year's surprises and maybe bake in some regression. So Missouri kind of jumps out.
I knew you were going to say Missouri. That was one of mine.
Okay. Missouri jumps out to me, Andy. And listen, they've got a lot of good stuff coming back here, though. They're losing their left tackle, one of the best pass rushers in the SEC.
2 good cornerbacks.
2 good corners, Cody Schrader. So I look at Missouri, our pal at ESPN, Bill Conley, his SP Plus ratings look like Missouri at number 11. So that's pretty good. Like we're expecting Missouri.
He's a Mizzou grad, though, Ralph. It's totally slanted.
Yeah, totally right. Bill's numbers are totally biased. So I'm going to bake in some regression for Mizzou and think that while they'll probably start the year as a fringe top 10 team, that's a team I could see only maybe winning 8 games, especially in a new bulked up SEC. Their schedule isn't crazy over the top, but it's pretty tough. And so I'm going to bake in some regression for Mizzou. That's my first one. How about we volley back and forth here, since I already stole one of yours?
I'm fine. I think we're thinking along the same lines. So the way I looked at it, one of the things I did, we've been looking at win totals a lot lately, and I'm looking at the teams that have 9.5 as the win total. And a lot of, because the 9.5 win total is will this team make the playoff or not? And it talks about, basically speaks to the expectations. And like Missouri, that what you said was exactly my thought. They lose Darius Robinson, they lose Ennis Rakestraw, they lose Chris Abrams-Drain, like they lose the Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator. So yes, they bring back Brady Cook, they bring back Luther Burden, but is that going to be enough to make them okay? I'll stay in the SEC with another 9.5 win total team, and this is one we examined this week. It's LSU.
Ooh.
So LSU is a 9.5 win total team. They stole Missouri's defensive coordinator, Blake Baker, but personnel-wise, they haven't really had a chance to change much on defense. They lost a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, potentially 2 first-round receivers. We'll see what Brian Thomas's combine performance does. But that is a tough schedule. And if the defense isn't significantly better, how are they supposed to have the same results? That's my question. Is what you're essentially saying is this team will have the same results as last year, taking the Heisman Trophy winner, 2 elite receivers away, and they had one of the worst defenses you'll ever see. So theoretically, there's nowhere to go from there but up. But it has to go up quite a bit.
Right. The defense will get better because it can't get much worse. But the offense will almost certainly regress because there's no way it's getting better without a quarterback who had one of the great years we've seen in recent college football history and 2 first-round draft pick wide receivers. So where does it meet in the middle? I hadn't thought of LSU. Can I throw one maybe wild card?
Yeah, go for it.
For LSU, and that would be because I was skeptical about the sunshine we were throwing in LSU last year. I was not in on the LSU as a national championship contender last year,
and they weren't. But what you look back and they won 10 games, so it's like, okay, it was strange, but they did win 10 games.
Yeah, they were a little bit of a disappointment relative to their very high expectations. So they landed about where I kind of thought they might be. But what I would suggest is this, and I would need to really dig into their roster a little more. One of the things I was skeptical about last year was it was simply year 2 for Brian Kelly. Mm-hmm. Like simply being year 2 and haven't had a chance to build up the roster through recruiting. Remember, he took over a roster that had, I think, 38 scholarship players left for that bowl game. Now, I know they had a recruiting class coming in on top of that. So I just thought
a very good recruiting class, including 2 great offensive tackles.
Yeah. So I just thought, so that's my point. Like, does that recruiting class and the last couple of recruiting classes, that's what you need to be a contender at a high level in the SEC. So are they moving away from, God, we're patching all these holes with the portal players like we did last year with the secondary, and that did not work. So does that balance off a little bit? The fact that they've now got 3 recruiting classes under their belt, does that balance off a little bit of the regression of simply losing, this all-world offense?
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see what they do. Brian Kelly's year 3s have historically been very, very good at his previous stops. So, but they got to be better on the defensive line. They've got to be better at corner. That part, I see no evidence that it's been fixed yet. So I'm going to need to see that on the field. So that's where I feel like 9.5 is a very high win total for them. I'll throw 2 more at you. These are my 2 Big 12 co-favorites. So I'm high on these teams, but I can see a path where for one of them it may just fall apart.
So and that's one of Utah these is I had one of these 2, I guess. I'm guessing.
Yeah, Utah and Kansas State. Like Utah gets Cam Rising back. Those are my 2 Big 12 favorites.
My other Big 12 favorite that I have on this list is Arizona.
Oh, yes. That one I feel like expectations are tempered because Jed Fish left.
That's a good point.
So if they drop off, I don't think anybody's going to hold Brent Brennan responsible for that or hold Noah Fafita responsible for, it's not the same.
Fair enough. Okay. So I'll give you the floor back on Utah and Kansas State then.
Yeah. So Cam Rising comes back for Utah. I think Brant Keithy's going to be back. They should be able to walk into the Big 12 as the best program in the Big 12. This should be a return to the Utah at a level that won 2 consecutive Pac-12 titles. And that's easy to say and hard to do. And I say this believing that Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches in America. And so, but I think either them or Kansas State probably is going to underperform, mostly because the rest of the Big 12 is good. Like, everybody's solid, and some of these teams are straight up good. And it's going to be hard to win 9 or 10 games in this league.
It goes back to Bill C's, if you look at his SP Plus projections, right? Like, there was no Big 12 team, I believe, in the top 15. But there are just a ton of Big 12 teams between 17 and 35. In fact, they're almost all between 17 and 35. And it goes back to a lot of what you've talked about before, about how, like, the new Big 12, what's going to be cool about the new Big 12 is its balance. And the fact that a lot of these teams look similar, not just on the field look similar, but I mean, like, are truly built similarly as programs. Maybe that changes over the course of time. Can I throw one more at you on my list that doesn't fall into my model, It's
Yeah.
more of an LSU. I mean, this is probably an obvious one, but Michigan, right? Michigan's
lose
probably
a lot.
I understand the expectations will be lowered, but I still think that they will be a top 10 preseason team, maybe back end of the top 10, but they will still be a top 10. And I could really see Michigan going 8-4 next year. Between the coaching change and all the players being lost, like that's a rough combination, and the schedule ticks up.
Schedule's hard. Their draw compared to other Big Ten draws is difficult.
Yeah, they get Oregon, USC, and what now? Listen, USC
and Washington.
We'll see what's going on with them. Washington, they're in a rebuild, so I'm not even putting them in this conversation because they're in such a massive rebuild. But nonetheless, I just think the even compared to the lowered expectations of Michigan, and I haven't seen their win total. I should probably look it up real quick.
9.5.
So they're another one at 9.5. I could see them being like 8 wins, and maybe if they get a little unlucky, who's playing quarterback for Michigan, Andy? Maybe even a situation where they win 7 games, which of course is not going to be a great look for Sharon Moore. But I think people have to look at the context and understand all the turnover there, and compounded with a tougher Big Ten.
So yeah, Alex Orji, saw some photos of him working out the other day. He looks like $1 million. But it's unclear whether he wins the job or is it somebody younger, or is the starter for Michigan not on the roster right now?
There is another portal season coming up. There is another portal period.
Legit question.
So there is that. I just think there's so much turnover there that I could see things getting weird at Michigan. And again, I think that would send Michigan fans into a panic, but don't panic. I do think Sharon Moore knows what he's doing.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.